A queen beneath the waters fights to protect her throne, while her own brother, the prince, plots to take it away. Blood ties clash with power, love, and betrayal in this battle for the Water Kingdom. If you stand against evil, if you don't support bullies, drop a comment below and let your voice be heard. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss more stories like this. The sea shimmered with 1,000 shades of blue, where sunlight filtered through the waves and lit up towers of coral that rose like palaces carved by the gods. In the very heart of this kingdom lived its sovereign, Queen Nerissa, the mermaid chosen by the ancient tides. Her golden fins glistened as she drifted through the palace halls, her hand resting gently upon her swollen belly. The whispers of her court spoke of hope, of renewal, of the child who would inherit the throne and lead the seas into an age of peace. Nerissa carried more than an heir. She carried the future. But not all hearts rejoiced. From the shadows of a pillar, Prince Kalin, her younger brother, watched with cold eyes. The crown had slipped from his grasp the moment Nerissa announced her pregnancy. His jaw tightened as he saw the way the court bowed to her, their loyalty bound not just to their queen but to the life she carried within. An heir, Kalin muttered bitterly under his breath, his voice curling like poison in the water. Born to rule, while I remain forgotten. The queen, radiant in her quiet joy, did not notice his gaze. But the sea felt the tremor of envy stirring in its depths. Kalin's chambers were silent except for the slow pulse of the ocean around them. He sat on a throne of black stone, fingers drumming against its edge, his mind heavy with schemes. The crown had always been his ambition, yet now it was slipping into the hands of an unborn child. "The court cheers for her," he whispered, eyes narrowing. "But when the child arrives, they will forget me entirely." He rose and swam toward the deep trenches beyond the palace walls, places where light never touched and shadows gathered like smoke. Creatures of the abyss stirred at his presence, eels with glowing eyes, witches wrapped in kelp, spirits long banished by Nerissa. Kalin stretched out his hand. "Join me, and I will give you dominion once more. But first, my sister and her wretched heir must fall." The darkness swirled around him, answering his call. A pact was made in silence, bound not by honor, but by hunger. From that moment, Kalin's heart hardened like coral stone. No longer was he simply the queen's brother. He became the architect of her ruin. And in the stillness of the deep, the waters trembled, as if they already knew. Queen Nerissa could not sleep. Night after night, she felt the weight of unseen eyes, the shifting currents that carried whispers of treachery. Her brother's smile no longer reached his eyes. She knew the sea itself was warning her. One dusk, she swam beyond the kingdom's borders to the riverbank where ocean met land. There, a young human woman bent low to draw water in a clay jar. Startled at first, the woman froze as Nerissa emerged from the tide, her silver scales shimmering under the fading light. "I mean you no harm," the queen said softly, "but I ask of you something great." The woman, trembling yet curious, listened as Nerissa revealed her fear. She spoke of Kalin's envy, of the child growing within her, and of the danger that loomed. "If I fall," Nerissa pleaded, taking the woman's hand, "raise my child as your own. Hide her from the sea. Let her live." The human nodded slowly, bound by a promise that crossed both worlds. Back in the palace, Nerissa turned to her loyal matron. "If Kalin asks, tell him only this: the child never lived." And so the queen sealed her desperate plan, unaware of how soon it would be tested. The palace was cloaked in silence the night Nerissa's child came into the world. No royal fanfare, no gathered court, only the queen, her matron, and the shadows pressing close. The queen's cries echoed softly through the chamber until, at last, the infant's first breath filled the water. A girl, small, fragile, yet her eyes glowed with a light not of this world. Nerissa held her close, tears mingling with the sea. "She is perfect," the queen whispered, "and she must be hidden." At once, the matron wrapped the child in kelp silk and guided her through secret currents that led to the surface. On the riverbank, the waiting human woman took the infant into trembling arms. "She will be safe," the woman vowed. When Kalin came demanding news, the matron bowed low, her voice steady despite the lie. It was a boy, but he did not survive. For a moment, Kalin's cold eyes flickered with triumph. He turned away, his lips curving into a cruel smile. "So the throne is mine." In the silence that followed, Nerissa lay weak but resolute. Though stripped of hope, she clung to one truth: her daughter lived, and destiny still waited. Kalin wasted no time. With the lie of the dead child settling in his favor, he summoned the council. "The queen has failed the kingdom," he declared, voice cutting like a blade. No future. The seas cannot drift leaderless. The crown must pass to me." Some hesitated, their loyalty still with Nerissa. But Kalin's allies, those dark creatures he had courted, slithered into the chamber. Their presence silenced dissent. Fear did the rest. The crown was lowered onto his head, not by honor, but by fear. Nerissa was seized before her people. Her wrists bound in chains of black coral, she was dragged through the very halls she once ruled. The citizens looked on, torn between sorrow and silence. No one dared speak against the new king. Her prison was a hollow cavern deep below the palace, lit only by faint cracks where moonlight seeped in. There, the queen was left to wither, her voice unheard, her power stripped away. Above, Kalin's reign began. The waters grew colder, the reefs darkened, and shadows spread across the sea. And though she was caged, Nerissa clung to one fragile hope, her child, hidden far from his reach. Far from the sea's reach, the child grew among humans. The woman who had promised Nerissa raised her as her own, giving her the name Alara. To all who knew her, she was simply an ordinary girl, yet the ocean never truly released her. Strange things followed her from childhood. Buckets of water would tip without reason when she cried. Fish gathered near her whenever she lingered by the river. Shells hummed in her hands as though they remembered her bloodline. On her 18th birthday, the signs could no longer be ignored. Standing at the riverbank, Alara felt a surge rise within her. The water stirred, rippling as if bowing to her presence. A sudden flash struck. The river itself coiled upward, encircling her like a crown. Terrified, she stumbled back, only to see her reflection twist. No longer her own face, but that of a woman with sorrowful eyes and a crown of coral, the queen imprisoned beneath the sea. The voice in the water whispered, carrying across worlds, "You are the air, and the sea is waiting." Alara's heart pounded. Her life was not what she believed. Destiny had found her at last. Alara staggered away from the river, her breath sharp, the echo of the voice still ringing in her ears. That night, she confronted the only person she could, her mother, the woman who had raised her with quiet devotion. "Tell me the truth," Alara demanded, her hands trembling. "Who am I?" The woman's face broke with sorrow. She had carried this burden for 18 years, and now the time for silence was over. "You are not mine," she confessed. "Your mother is Queen Nerissa of the Sea. She entrusted you to me the night you were born, when danger close-upped and around her. Your uncle would have destroyed you if he knew you lived." Alara's world tilted. The strange powers, the visions, the voice, it all fell into place. "Then she's alive," Alara whispered. "Yes," her mother said, tears filling her eyes. "But imprisoned, and only you, her blood, can break his hold. The sea is dying under his rule. It waits for you." Alara stared toward the dark horizon, fear pressing against her chest. Yet beneath it, something stirred, an awakening, fierce and unstoppable. Her path was no longer her own. The ocean had called her home. The night was still when Alara made her choice. She walked to the riverbank, the place where her life had unknowingly begun. With each step, the pull of the ocean grew stronger, calling her home. Kneeling at the water's edge, she whispered, "If I am truly hers, then let me return." The river surged, wrapping around her like an embrace. Her body shifted, legs dissolving into glimmering fins, skin shimmering with scales of silver and blue. Breath flowed easily as she sank beneath the surface, her human life peeling away with every stroke. The ocean opened before her, vast, luminous, and alive. Yet its beauty was shadowed by decay. Coral lay dark and brittle, schools of fish scattered in fear, and heavy silence pressed through the currents. Her uncle's rule poisoned everything. At last, Elara reached the gates of the palace. Soldiers flinched at her arrival, whispers rippling through the ranks. She swam boldly into the throne chamber. Upon the black coral throne sat King Kalin, draped in shadows, his crown gleaming like stolen fire. He leaned forward, smirking. "So, the dead child returns. A half-blood pretending to claim my see." Alara's jaw tightened. "I am no pretender. I am the rightful heir." The throne chamber trembled as Kalin rose, his laughter curling through the water like venom. "You think blood makes you strong?" he sneered. "You are nothing but a half-breed. This sea bends to me alone." He lifted his hands, and the darkness obeyed. Whirlpools tore open across the palace floor, black tendrils of magic lashing out like serpents. Creatures of the deep, fang-toothed and twisted, swarmed at his call. Alara's body shook, but she held her ground. The current around her thickened, pressing in, daring her to break. Then she remembered her mother's eyes in the reflection, her mother's voice. "You are the heir." She closed her eyes and reached deep. The water answered, not with shadows, but with light. The ocean itself surged through her veins, wrapping her in waves of silver fire. Her scream turned into a war cry as she unleashed it, the tide exploding outward. Kalin staggered, his darkness colliding with her storm. The clash split the chamber, shattering coral pillars, tearing the sea with blinding force. At last, Alara's power engulfed him. His crown cracked, his voice broke, and the shadows dissolved. When silence returned, Kalin was gone. And in the still waters, Elara stood victorious. When the battle ended, silence spread through the sea. The shadows were gone, and in their absence, the waters began to breathe again. Coral shimmered faintly, fish returned in cautious swirls, and the heavy darkness that had suffocated the kingdom started to lift. Alara's strength nearly failed her, but she swam with purpose, to the prison where her mother had been kept for years. With one strike of her hand, the black coral chains shattered. Queen Nerissa stepped forward, weakened but radiant, her eyes brimming with tears. Mother and daughter embraced, the bond that had been severed now restored. Together, they returned to the palace. The people gathered, bowing not in fear but in hope. Nerissa raised her daughter's hand before them. "This is Elara," she declared, voice strong despite the years of silence. "The heir I hid, the heir who has freed us." The sea roared with approval. Upon her head, they placed the crown, not Kalin's twisted relic, but one forged anew, glowing with the pure light of the tides. Peace returned, yet as the kingdom celebrated, far beneath the trenches, something stirred. A faint pulse in the abyss whispered of shadows not yet gone. The ocean story was far from over.